Hey everybody, we're live. What's going on with everyone? Oh, we already got people in chat. What's up, John? Ben Doolin, what's going on with you? Myco Much Love, welcome. John says, I have an 85-gallon Bubba's barrel. I was very stupid and tried to cook grain in it. Wasted a lot. Facepalm now, using it for straw or a mix of cocoa verm straw. How long would you suggest cooking? I mean, that's going to depend on how quick everything gets up to temperature, but you want to keep everything at temperature in the core for about 4 hours. So, I mean, the length of time is just going to depend on how long it takes you. You're going to have to put a sensor in there to tell or do some cooks and back it off. I know straw only needs a few hours, but I've been running it for 13 hours, packed pretty tight. Yeah, the tighter you pack it, the longer you're going to run it. Curious if you think this is overkill. Not necessarily, but if you back it down and you start having contamination, then you'll know where you're supposed to be at. And do you know a cheap way to chop straw besides a weed whacker? I understand why T.R. Davis calls it Satan Substrate. It is terrible stuff, John, and there is a reason we call it Satan Substrate. The best way to chop straw that I can think of is if you can buy a lot of bales at once and then rent a straw chopper, and then have a place that you can store all that straw. If you don't, then a chipper shredder, you can get those for a few $100 at Walmart, but it's not cheap. It's cheap once you've got it there and going, but it's going to be a few $100s to buy that. Otherwise, throw straw out in your yard and run over it with a push mower or a riding mower, and then rake it back up. That's easier than a weed whacker. You'll look weird doing it though. Let's see. What's up? So Ben says, just popping in to say hi. I'm heading to see a Pink Floyd cover band. Just wanted to take the opportunity to rub it in everyone's face. Oh my gosh. Have a good time, Ben. You're probably already gone. I feel you, John. Pink Floyd, man. I'm guessing you're at least 50 years old. Well, Michael Much Love, actually, he's not. He's like late 20s, early 30s. I'm not actually sure. He's somewhere around my age, maybe a little younger. I've never been to really any kind of band. I've only been to one what I would consider real concert, but that was at Red Rocks in Colorado. So, let's see. What's up, Bradley? Lee? Sean Shields? Bradley again? What's up? James, man, welcome. Or Q-Lade. What is the correct temperature to keep your steamer at? That's going to depend. So, I mean, if you're talking about an atmospheric steamer, which a lot of times people are. So if you're talking about an atmospheric steamer and you are at the... So a lot of that depends on elevation because water boils at different temperatures. The boiling action is when the steam happens. So it's going to depend on what elevation you are. So let's just say that you are at my elevation, which I think is about 1,300 feet above sea level. I could be wrong. I'll look that up real quick, just so I'm not telling you wrong. Elevation for Jefferson City, Tennessee is 1,161 feet. So that's close. So we never could get our atmospheric steamers above 209. And see, the boiling point of water is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. But again, that's going to depend on your elevation. The higher up you go, the higher up you go, the lower the boiling point of water. So at sea level, it's 212. So, James, it's not really about keeping your steamer at a certain temperature. It's about keeping the core of your blocks at a certain temperature. And we like to get ours up to 209 degrees. That's the highest we can get it atmospheric-wise. And keep it there. We want the core there for close to 12 hours is what we do for the ultra-pasteurization. So, hopefully that answers it. Lee says, chopped with a weed eater once, never again. Put me down for a week. Yeah, right. You have to sterilize your substrate when using coffee grounds. Yeah, absolutely. Coffee grounds absolutely go bad fast. Isn't it like 3 p.m. out there? Cover band this early? Yeah, I don't know. I guess it would be about 3 p.m. where he's at. Maybe he's talking about he'll go there a little bit. What? You haven't lived? Yeah, I haven't been to very many concerts. I grew up, I went to some Christian concerts growing up, but it's not the same kind of thing, if you know what I mean. There's one thing going to, like, Tennessee Christian Teen Convention when I'm growing up, and that's a pretty wholesome environment. And then you go to Red Rocks, and you go see Wardruna at Red Rocks, and there are just the smell of weed and beer everywhere. It's just a very different kind of thing. I don't go out to clubs or bars or concerts and stuff much, so, you know, I have observed concerts from afar. Like, I had a buddy that lived way up, high in a building, and we sat on his patio and listened to one of our favorite bands playing a concert down in the park, but that was far away. It wasn't really part of the concert, so. Let's see. Hey, what's up, Josh? Are you concerned that the soy holes are most likely sprayed with Roundup? Eddie, no, not really. I'm more concerned that they're sprayed with an antifungal than Roundup. But the pellets don't seem to have a problem. I've never had a problem with that, so. I left my stuff using the mower on straw. Not a bad idea, though. About a minute behind on the stream. You're a minute behind on the stream, or am I? Am I lagging real bad? Not much, man. First live I've caught. Thanks for all your awesome videos. Yeah, Bradley, absolutely, man. Thank you for watching. You didn't say much about black soldier fly larvae in your last video with insects. I'm super excited about this. Could you speak a little bit about the black soldier fly larvae? Is there a reason you aren't trying them to decompose blocks? Just because of the infrastructure. I need more infrastructure. You've got to have breeding tent. It's not like the same thing as putting them in tubs. Like, I can do worms, mealworms, superworms, the roaches all in tanks and tubs, and it's really easy to set up. If I want to do black soldier flies, I have to have a lot more infrastructure, and I have to have a better system in place. And so these were all early experiments that I've been going with. And then the black soldier fly larva will come one day when I have more infrastructure in place to do so. But I am working on it. What's up, Vision Quest? If I could only get it to 195, is that not going to be good enough for 10 hours, 12 hours? So if you can get it there, what you're looking at 195, and I don't know, where you're at in the country, and, if you insulated your tank, if you would get it a little higher or not, but, 195 technically is pasteurization temperatures. Absolutely. You're probably going to want to do it for longer than I do mine at 12 hours, which is overkill. So you might want to go for 13 or 14 at temperature, which means that whatever, the temperature is at the center of your mass, you want that to hit 195, and then you start your clock. So for me, it takes about a 12-hour heat up, and then a 12-hour at temp cook. So thoughts on using diluted coffee and liquid culture for acid-loving species. Also, I'm curious about how often to use the stir plates and how long. I left them running over the weekend, and it was impressive. Yeah, so in my opinion, once you start stirring, it would be best if you never stopped. I have 200 and something strains in jars right now, and like 7 stir plates. So I can't do that. I got to buy more stir plates or build some bigger ones or something. But it's just no way for me to keep them. I need orbital shakers. Orbital shakers would probably work. So something like that. As far as coffee goes, yeah, I've thought about all kinds of different additions for different strains and species, and I haven't tried coffee yet, but I've tried coconut water, which that was a suggestion from a couple people. I've tried Caro, but I haven't tried a lot of like other kinds of weird oddity stuff yet. Let's see. My fear is the Roundup chemicals will be absorbed into the mushrooms. Are you familiar with any studies? From what I understand, Eddie, they don't. So I am aware of work. I can't list it off to you right now. We've looked into this before. From my understanding, there is no Roundup that comes through in the mushrooms. At best, worst case, the mushrooms absorb the constituent chemicals after breaking them down to basically non-toxic parts. But as far as I know, there is no Roundup in your mushrooms when growing on Roundup sprayed stuff. How does carbon and nitrogen play a role in substrate? Well, that's kind of open-ended. Let's see. So carbon would be more along your lines of carbohydrates, is what I thought. So cellulose, hemicellulose, those are energy sources. And nitrogen would be the protein-bound molecule. So mushrooms are largely chitinous and amino acid based. Like, they are very high in amino acids, kind of low in protein. The carbon source, chitin, I believe, is a carbon structure. And the generic explanation is fine. Oh, okay. Well, if we're going... Yeah, I was going to say I'm struggling here because you asked me out of the blue and I haven't read up on it a little bit. But as far as going on carbon and nitrogen, basically nitrogen is a supplement. It speeds up your growth, makes your strain grow a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. Your carbon source is, kind of your brown material, your straw, your wood, and that is actually the energy source that the mushrooms are going to be growing off of. So you increase the amount of protein in your substrate, or nitrogen really, and it supports larger flushes. So I have found that mushrooms will produce on just straw or just sawdust, but your yields are much more highly boosted when you supplement with a high nitrogen source. And it's not just nitrogen, it's a nitrogen to fat to fiber content. And what was it? I think TR was saying that he kind of read about what mushrooms needed and then went with that. Excuse me. Went with the soy hulls just to trial them out, and they just did so amazingly well that that once you add the soy hulls, like your flushes just go crazy. So that's kind of the roles that they play. One's a supplement, whereas one is a main food source. But I'm starting to see older LC jars that have mostly changed the broth from dark brown to clear light amber. I think the mic couldn't handle constantly being on the stir plate after I use those. Yeah, I think after a certain point, you probably do want to bring them off. But at that point, what I'm thinking is we've started pulling syringes, and there's a cat climbing up in my engine. No, what in the world? He's rubbing his head on my bumper of my truck. He is really rubbing his cheeks and face all over. That is weird. It's kind of freaking me out. Let's see. We pull. So those, once they change, they become full. We're starting to pull the syringes, like pull the whole jar into syringes, cap them off, and then store them. And it's working great for us. So I have done 195 for 16 hours, and it did great. So that's what Josh said. Who was it that was asking me? Was it Bradley? No, it was Kool-Aid. I know all about rearing black soldier fly larvae. I'm stoked to use them someday, like you're saying. Heck yeah. If you already know how to do them, then you got a leg up in that direction. For me, it's going to be still a lot of trial and error. You make a lot of great content. I've learned a ton from your videos. My family legit has a better diet because of the methods you've taught me. Oh, well, thank you, Rep. I appreciate that. How's the mushroom market around Knoxville? It's been great. I can't keep up with demand, so it's been pretty awesome. I've done an overall 20-hour cook. Okay, James, yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty legit. Hard to write concise questions. Do you think you can stir liquid culture too much? I wonder if the mic needs rest periods. I have like 12 stir plates. Oh, gosh, man. Then you got more than I do. So as far as really what it is, I just don't have enough plugs where I'm at. I even bought a huge bar, and I can only plug up so many on... My lab has really weird electricity right now. This old stuff, we've got to get it replaced. So we've got other things on there right now. So 8's about what I can handle at the moment. Let's see. So do I think you can stir it too much? Maybe. I haven't found it to be too much. I feel like you can stir it too soon. So more specifically, you can stir it when we do the needle biopsies and put that into liquid culture. I wait for about 3 or 4 days before I see growth on the little biopsy, little cores that I've taken. And if I start stirring before I see the growth on those cores, then it will completely stall out my growth. But if I wait and let those puff out a little bit, like I said, like we'll do them on Friday, come back and stir them on Monday, so it's a couple days. When you do that, I feel like everything speeds up really, really fast. So I bet bulk ordering USB fans and modifying them to be magnetic spinners is the cheapest if heating isn't needed. I mean, I just buy little plates off Amazon for like $30. It probably is cheaper to get USB fans, but you get better control with the just plain stir plates, I have found. I've also used cocoa water for LC. Didn't really follow up on it. Too expensive. I'd rather drink it. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the way to go. Wondering about the growth parameters of your BS8 strain. Is it a cold weather strain? Will it fruit in summer, 75 to 80? So it's fruiting right now at around 75 to 80 degrees. It does not have the same, it doesn't look the same, right? So if you don't, like we did our video for the BS8 fairly recently, the rooms were cooler, so you get thicker stems, let's see, a little bit better colors because of the cool weather, bright colors, or bright blues because of the lighting situation we have in our room. If your grow room is different, it'll change. So the big thing is it will fruit at 75 to 80, but it's probably going to be a little stressed at 75 to 80. Around 75 to 80, if you really want your best looking mushrooms, you're going to want stuff like Elm Z, Mother of Pearl does all right. King Blue does better at warmer temps than the BS8, though it's more prone to blotch, and most people get blotched during the summer, so be careful of that. What else would you want? Gold oysters, of course. Pink oysters do well. But both of those can take heat stresses in the grow room better than any sort of blue oyster can. And, of course, a lot of hericiums are heat tolerant. So, those kinds of things would do well in summer. Brian Lee, is there a method to squeeze substrate to measure water content? I measure in percentage by weight and ounces for water and grain, but it seems dry. I mean, not really. What you would want to do is microwave. Take a sample, let's say an ounce. Microwave it for about 20 seconds. Weigh it again. Microwave it for 20 seconds. Weigh it again. Microwave it for 20 seconds. Weigh it again. And when it finally stops losing weight, you know that you're at you've pulled all the water out. And that is your dry content. And then you can use the original weight and your remaining weight to figure out what your moisture content is. That said, if you're using pellets, it's usually not that big of a deal. A lot of people get really into it. I've heard people who swear by it, and then I've heard people who say it's done nothing for them. When we did it, maybe it shaved a day or two off our growth time, but sitting there having to weigh out your moisture content, pellets will gain moisture when the environment's more humid, and they are stored in a humid environment, and they will get drier when they're stored in a hot, dry environment. And honestly, if you store them in your warehouse, they're going to change as time goes. As soon as you open that pallet to the air, it starts changing. I just don't see it being worth it. I mean, the whole point of farming, we're not trying to, unless you're trying to do science, you don't need to turn it into super science. You just need to produce and do it effectively and economically. And it's really not that big of a deal to sit there and I haven't measured my moisture content in my pellets or my substrate in years because pellets are very consistent. You're welcome, Lee. Yeah, the cats, man, he was being weird. It wasn't even my cat. We've got two here, and the other one's some like golden colored cat and he's still out there, just rubbing his face on my bumper. He's grabbed it on each side, and he's just rubbing his face all over my bumper, and I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I know, Lee. It's terrible. I've got a buddy who does electrician work, and he needs to come. He said he would come and rewire a bunch of stuff. What type and size bags do you use with Thor? XLS-A. So it's the Unicorn XLS-A, and they turn out to be 12 pounds. How long can lion's mane stay in the syringe? So, Daniel, I don't know. Nobody really knows. I have stored strains from a golden enoki to oysters to hericiums for over a year at room temperature in a syringe. Used it, and it came out just as effective as the day I made it. So I don't know what the top end of storing in a syringe is. Stirring too soon, that's interesting. I felt like the LC I did from agar did best when I let a huge jellyfish grow off the chunk first. It seemed like when I started them off on LC, they just wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty accurate, I'd say. You can put LC on stir plate and leave it. 100% finishes early for me, much better, but that's me. Yeah, Eric, I agree. It's better to stir all the time if you can. They just wouldn't grow well, so that's very good to hear from you. Yeah, actually, absolutely, John. Hey, Andrew, do you plan on growing Cordyceps militaris for a try? Yeah, I've got some growing on superworms right now. They didn't grow well when I put them straight onto plates after inoculating. The agar to agar or liquid culture to agar? Part of why I stir is to prevent the mic from making a mat on the surface. Even when I break that up, it clogs my syringes. Yeah, we have that problem all the time. It's a pain. Thank you, Andrew, for setting my mind at ease. I was hoping it was good enough on the cook time. I guess I'll truly find out when I inoculate the bags and try to grow them out. That is correct. That is when you will truly find out. Thanks, Andrew. King Blue is a beast. I love it. Waiting to see how the BSA does. Yeah, I love the BSA. It is my new workhorse. That said, our HVAC is just now being installed, and it's being installed late this year. So, thankfully, Ben's, I think you got the mini split, vents hung. I don't remember what else has got to be done. But we got to get our 6-ton unit hooked up, and the HVAC guy we're going to use, his mother died. So we are, waiting on him to come out and hook everything up. But once we have that, we'll have, what is it, the mini split's a 3-ton, I think. Am I wrong? I can't remember. I think it's a 3-ton. I got 6 tons. We got like 9 tons of HVAC being hooked up right now that we should have finished by the end of the week, next week, which will put my room at a nice cold temperature and get my BS8 from being heat stressed anymore. Let's see. TR Davis has done a video about microwaving sub. Yes, he has. Absolutely. Use a 100-gram sample to get percentage. That, Thomas, I'm glad you said that. That actually is a better way to go than ounces. So yeah, use a 100-gram sample, figure out how many grams is left, then you know your moisture content like that. If you tried adding water to a bag with dry oats, leaving overnight and then pressure cooking instead of soaking the oats overnight, I know... Okay. You tried adding water... Oh, so the big reason why we don't add just oats and then water in a bag, I've actually wanted to do that for a while, is the bag just flops over. It takes a while for the grain to absorb the moisture. So I will say that Mike Rowe of Southwest uses Thor with millet, with German millet. So the spawn that he sells, he's got 2 Thor baggers. One's for grain, and one is for substrate. And I'm about to have Ben make me one for grain spawn. Actually, we're switching over, it looks like, to straw spawn. So I'll be doing a video on that soon, but we're probably going to leave oats behind fairly soon and just go straight to straw pellets as our spawn. But that said, we'll have a bagger for that, a Thor bagger, and a Thor bagger for our fruiting blocks. Ever use Fermade as a nutrient adjunct used for yeast? I have not used Fermade. I've thought about it, Brian, but I have not ever got my hands on Fermade. I mean, it's pretty easy to get your hands on. I just haven't done it yet. But it's been an interesting idea. My buddy is moving to Alabama in a couple of days and is trying to get me to come down with him. I'd be very close to you. Are you still looking for an assistant? I mean, are you planning on moving? I thought you were starting an op where you're at, John. And yeah, I mean, we're actually always looking for labor right now. But I mean, Alabama's hours away. It's up to you. Depends on where you're at in Alabama. So let's see, what is it? Huntsville, to give you an idea, is about 4 hours away from me. Can't help but ask out of curiosity, although I am working hard to get forest fruit mushrooms rolling here. Okay, yes. So yeah, you just answered my question. So yeah, I mean, if you're coming down to Alabama, you know, you won't be that far from it. For sure. And let's see. I got to go into my software real quick. I'll show you guys a picture of my BS8 and how it's looking right now. But I can't see what you guys are saying while I'm doing it, and I'm probably making some weird, funny faces, but, you know, is what it is. Okay, now, oh. Sorry. Oops. Blue. Okay. Hold on, I gotta resize it. I know this is really exciting for you guys. Just give me a moment and I'll get it fixed. Should have had this set up beforehand. So that's what my BS8 looks like right now. But you can see it's a little heat stress. It's not as dark as it once was. It doesn't have the same... It doesn't have the same like big thick stems that it had. The colors aren't quite as big. You can see streaks running through it. That's what my BS8 is looking right now in the heat. And that's about 75 degrees. So it's still a pretty mushroom, but it's not my favorite for, you know, for the heat. So if you were asking about that earlier. Oh, let's see. Yeah, Lee, I know. Well, I wasn't planning on showing BS8, so... And yeah, I'm using OBS, Open Broadcast. Seems like mushroom farming is a pretty small and close community. Do you find yourself having good relations with your competitors? Yeah, Andrew, I mean, there's some people that, you know, rub me the wrong way. There's some people I rub the wrong way, like in any community. But as far as, like, competition goes, I don't really have any competition. Not saying that other people aren't good enough to be competition, but like you said, that the community's small and it's growing really fast. So, you know, there are little cliques that have developed, I guess, but everybody seems to be pretty friendly with everybody else for the most part. Jerks get weeded out pretty quick. And I mean, I'm trying to think of who. So Lenny Rockwell and I are friends, and that's about like liquid culture. I literally trained the guy in Powell, Tennessee, which is in Knoxville, and told him about some restaurants that were on his side of Knoxville that are further away from me that I don't like to go, and so we no longer get mushrooms to them. But they still want mushrooms. So he came down for a week-long mentorship, bought a bagger off of us, and then went to PAL, and he's growing in Knoxville and selling to restaurants. So, and he and I are friends. We talk. He's in my Discord. John says, straw spawn madness. Very curious about this. I've been wanting to take Paul Stamets' advice from his book where he says a secret method is to use vermiculite with soy protein for... I don't wonder why vermiculite. People always add vermiculite, but I wonder why. I need to read that again. I'm from Massachusetts. I'm starting my own commercial grow business. I was wondering if you do bulk sales of fruiting blocks and the price. I do, but I mean, it's for local pickup only, Matthew. So Massachusetts is pretty far away. May I suggest Maine Cap and Stem? Eric Lohman of Maine Cap and Stem and the rest of the team up there, they are fantastic. Tyler and Eric can get you set up with the blocks delivered to your door. There are other people that, if you don't want to work with them, I could suggest, like TR Davis, sells blocks. Maine Cap and Stem actually does some of my strains in fruiting blocks. So if you ask them for some Mossy Creek Mushrooms originals, I send Tyler my strains regularly, and they store them in cryo for me, and they get to use those strains to produce mass fruiting blocks, but they don't sell the actual strains. So we've got a really good deal set up with them. We both, profit in some way off of that. And I like Eric a lot. He's really good. TR, I've been to TR's place. He's a good block purveyor. Trying to think of who else does bulk blocks that I would suggest. Those are the two main ones that I can think of. Got to set these things. Oh yeah, Lean, I've already mentioned. Is that a Celestron C8 on an AVX mount? I have the exact same setup. So Jay probably. So that my grandfather wanted a telescope, and he picked that one out. He had me purchase it for him, put it in my name, and then when he died, it went to me. So I have that telescope. I use it, but I use it almost entirely when Ben Erickson's around, because Ben Erickson is the true astronomer and really knows how to set the stuff up. I know how to use it a little bit, but I have not used it for as much. We've actually talked about, we're wanting to do stargazing parties over at the Foundry, because we got that big flat parking lot and that huge field out back, and it'd be pretty nice. It gets pretty dark over there. So, but that's a good eye. Everybody always notices stuff in the background. What are you guys doing? Blowing the screen up? Buddy is getting a bunch. And by the way, and Jay, yeah, we are space nerds. I love SpaceX. I love rockets. But what I'm most interested in is growing food on Mars. And I love sci-fi. So, but I'm not really the astronomer or the engineering type. So, Buddy is getting a bunch of land and is about 30 to 45 minutes away from you. Oh, wow. He knows I talked to you about the assistant position before. It's a bit of a toss-up between starting my own business. I'm 30 to 45 minutes away from me? He can't be if he's in Alabama. I don't think. No, he couldn't be. He'd be far away. What's up, Harley? Kind of humorous to watch your eyes follow the mushroom picture around as you resize. Yeah, I imagine. I imagine it was going pretty crazy. And working for you, because I know I could learn so much from being with you. We have very similar interests with building up the whole ecosystem, bugs, fish, life. Yeah, the next level is to farm bacteria. I guess I've been doing that with yeast, so it's still fungus. But yeah, absolutely. We actually are doing root scrapings of different trees in order to test a product that can be injected into the soil, a living product that would basically be, think about it, you've got all these trees in urban settings, they've never been in a healthy forest, their roots have never been in a healthy forest. So if you can go get healthy forest soil microbes that are found at plant roots, we've got hemlock and black locust and oak and maple and tulip poplar and pine, and I don't even remember what else, where we take it, we do root swabs and scrapings, and then plate them out. And right now we're just in the discovery phase. But yeah, absolutely, John. I feel you. I'm big on that stuff. Yeah, I mean, if you're around, come up here. If you're going to be close by, come see us. John, feel free to stop in Huntsville, Alabama. Where is he moving to? That's Josh asking you, John. what we do for spore filtration with the mini splits. So the mini splits, I don't have a good way. I'm not good at describing stuff. So I'll put it this way. You guys have seen my videos. So you've got the Great Hall that goes all the way down, and then you got the grow rooms off to the right. All of the mini splits will be in the incubation, which will be to the left, and then the outlets will be in that hallway. And all of the outlets for our big 6-ton unit will be in that big hallway. So we're preconditioning that hallway. And then you can go through the doors to whichever grow room you want, or to the left to go into whichever incubation room you want. Or you can go all the way down the hallway to go to Man of War, or all the way back up to go to our walk-in and our production side and our offices. So we're not going to have to worry about spore filtration. Posted a few pics about this on Discord, but I can't tell if my lion's mane bags are fully colonized or not. The bottom doesn't look colonized, but the top does, and it's pinning. I know it's supposed to be real wispy, but not sure if it's ready or not. I mean, sometimes you have to get real close and shine a light on them, or even use a magnifying lens to see. If you see really any kind of growth at all, then that area is pretty well colonized. And, I mean, to give you an idea, I inoculate my lion's mane, let them incubate for 7 days, and then put them in the grow room. They still look like brown bags, but it helps keep them from pinning. You want to put them in there before they start pinning. Lion's mane mycelium is very hard to see. It's usually ready to fruit before you can see full colonization. So that's basically what John just said. Vermiculite is like millet, small particle size, lots of inoculation points. I got you. Yeah, that's what we were doing with the straw, because people used to use sawdust spawn, but it was non-nutritive, and so people stopped doing it, even though the straw bags would grow in faster. But now I was like, well, we're already supplementing blocks, and since we're supplementing blocks, it makes sense that you can just go back to the non-nutritive spawns. So, offers some nutrition. I'll have to look at it. I haven't talked to Roger Rabbit in some time. Hey, baby.
Hi. Need it back.
Good to see you. Thanks for Samantha says hello. Thanks. The closest place is Mycotera, but they only have a small variety. Yeah, Main Cap and Stem will ship stuff to you, Matthew. So that's who I would go with. Hey, from Alderney and the Channel Islands, dude. Thanks for your work, man. Well, hello, Gareth. And hello from East Tennessee. Well, not so much nutrition, but some kind of minerals. Okay, I got you. Yeah, like a supplement of some sort. Could be wrong about how far away he is from you, but still, even if it was a couple hours. Yeah, I mean, like, if he's in, like, northeast Alabama, it's probably not far from me. Because that'd be like pretty much directly below Chattanooga. And Chattanooga is only about an hour and a half away from me. Rocket, I don't know if you're watching the chat, but John said he can't remember the name of the town he's moving to. You mentioned a king strain a couple videos back. It only produces a couple of large fruits. Is it a good strain? And if so, do you have the strain? I do have the strain, and it is a very good strain. It's my favorite king. I don't have it being sold right now. I will have to pull it out of cold storage, put it in liquid culture, so I can probably have it in about 3 weeks. 3 or 4 weeks. I'll let people know when I've got it out in some way. Vermiculite is for water retention and aeration. It makes it more fluffy to have more water and help the substrate with gas exchange. I hadn't heard that, but it makes sense. I already drive regularly drive a few hours on the weekend to visit my girlfriend. She's going to school a couple hours away. She's going to school a couple hours away in Alabama or a couple hours away from Washington. And if you move down to Alabama and or Tennessee, you're going to be flying distance away from your girlfriend, John. Well, really, it's that wispy. Good to know. Thanks. I left them for a month incubating. Oh, yeah. They are incredibly wispy. Lion's mane is doing everything it can to trick you out. So you got to make sure that you don't let it get all tricksy on you. Systematize it and then fruit it on that system and that schedule. I could do a video on that too. I've had a lot of people ask me about that, and that would be a really easy video to make, actually. Should have done that one for today. Let's see. Kool-Aid says hi, Sam. Lion's mane often will fruit off the top before even touching the bottom of the bag or surfing. Yeah, that's so. Whenever I cut them, a lot of times sawdust will spill out into the grow room because they are so wispy still and not well put together that they will absolutely just start fruiting all over the place. Once they start fruiting, they create those little fruits can rot really easily. I mean, it's pretty rough. 3 hours, 50 minutes. Scottsboro. That sounds. Let's see. Scottsboro, Alabama, is indeed like 3.5 hours away from me. So you're talking 3 hours and 20 minutes. But you're not far from Huntsville, where he's moving to. So you would be really close to Rocket City mushrooms. And Rocket City would be a really good place to visit while you're down there. If you go visit, man, you can still come up and visit here. Like you said, it's 4 hours away. But Rocket will definitely be down there. And Rocket's one of the guys that's been, yeah, so there you go. Rocket's already talking to you about it. Well, you don't need to explain to me if I can start a business to take care of her, the future kids. It'd be worth waiting a year for her to move down south with me. That's fair. I get you, John. For sure. Oh, I try not to worry about people. You know, people are capable of making their own decisions. I just like for there to be a clear understanding in those. No, CMZ. A lion's mane block will not feel as solid as an oyster. It'll still feel like sawdust. Like I said, when I cut, sawdust oftentimes spills out of the cut into the grow room floor. So I know, John, but I was looking because I didn't know where Scottsboro was, and I didn't know where it was in comparison to Huntsville, and I was curious. So I figured that's how you knew it was three hours and 3.5 hours or whatever away. Yeah, Josh is a cool guy to go talk to. Though, Josh, how's the eye? Oh, let me grab my water real quick. I like the name forest fruit mushrooms. Seems like a really good one. It's got good alliteration. And of course, it's quite literal, which tells people exactly what it is. Excuse me. Thank you, guys. We've actually been doing a lot of videos Samantha and I are working on right now. We're working on a make your muscle milk plus mushroom video. What? Wait, muscle milk plus mushroom? I'm not sure about that. You can see more today. Good, Josh. I'm glad to hear that. Hell yeah. Josh, well, maybe he doesn't want the world to know, but Josh is a redneck who was rednecking it up. Like many of us rednecks do. So, oh yeah, John, don't worry about it, man. All is okay. Oh crap, what was I talking about? Oh, the videos that we're working on. So we're working on contamination series. Definitely got Neurospora waiting in the wings. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, don't work with Neurospora in your lab, but it's not in my culture lab, thankfully, but it's also a very controlled environment. So I am working with Neurospora and a couple of other strains of contaminants like trike, and I'm trying to think of what else, but I'm trying to plate them and actually purposely contaminate some blocks. And then take some video of these different setups, the different contaminated blocks and such. And just to give you guys an idea of how contamination grows, how it works, that's, I think it's going to be some cool videos to do. Let's, man, I keep, is the sounding dumb. I don't know why I picked that back up. I think because I haven't done videos in a while, and the camera's been making me nervous again. So, we were talking about how shaking the bags works the shoulders. Thumbnail is muscle milk. And title was, you won't believe how muscle milk affects her. Oh, that's right, the clickbait title. Will you do what with this? I put this in what? I can see that really catching some people's attention. I really want to get some property and start doing morels, chanterelles, and the dream would be chicken of the woods. Dude, that's I would love to do all that stuff, but it is so hard to get that stuff to grow. Unless you're talking about just wild hunting, which would also be really cool. Chicken of the woods will grow, and there's got to be a way to get the yield up. But on a 12-pound block, I've only ever managed to get a quarter pound, maybe a half pound on a really good flush. So I can get them to fruit, but I can't get them to fruit and sustain large flushes. And I would really, really enjoy that. I wonder if I ever tried growing them in the summertime, or if I only ever grew them in the winter. It's been years now. I'm going to try that. That'd be great. Well, like I said, I think forest fruit mushrooms is a good name. So I have a whole plan. I cultured some wild morels, and I'm making spawn. And I can plant in the wild, GPS the coordinates, and go back next year. So people will often spawn the woods, and then they never go back to check on it, or if they do, they just kind of look around. If you can GPS tag where you have spawned or planted sawdust blocks or straw blocks or whatever in the floor, or on the forest floor, or even just dug a little hole and put it in there, and then you can come back to it, uncover it, and see if you can see it having spread, if it is even still there, if it's completely degraded. You might even be able to just dig a hole, put a bag in there, and then punch a few holes in the bag so that the bag is mostly protected and the mushrooms only have to fight contaminants around those specific entry points, and they might be able to spread from those entry points. It'd be cool to try. I would be very interested in your results, John. Yeah, you need a good meme video. Why not? You were going to Photoshop your head on a bodybuilder. Yeah, I remember this now. Completely. What I need to do is do a bodybuilder with my head on it, right? But when he's got to be going like this, right? And then have mushroom clusters for hands. Old muscle milk. This is going to be great. I'm going to see if Samantha's Photoshop skills are going to be able to handle this. Might take more than one season to get the morels going, though. Yeah, that's something I've wondered about. So there are people who they put morels in brine, so a salt and sugar water brine, let it get kind of bubbly and see, they stir the morels in, pull the morels out, cook their morels or whatever, and then let the brine kind of ferment. And they say they get mycelium growing in it, and then they go there and pour it around their trees. I don't know how effective that is. One guy got morels in that same spot where he poured it, but I never did ask him, did you have morels growing there before? Did you know whether you had morels growing there before or not? So, we'll see. I'm also going to put LC or spore water into a water gun and go for a hike spray any dead wood I find. I have thought about that, too. That would be cool. Actually, what we talked about was, what's it called? It's a forester's tool. It's a little hatchet. A hypo hatchet? I think it's called a hypo hatchet because it's got little needles in it, and when you do the chopping action and thunk into the wood, those little needles will spray liquid. And the way they do it is there's a little, basically little gravity activated valve in there. So when you go back, it basically fills the reservoir from a backpack. Fills the reservoir in the hatchet, and then you go down, boom, and it goes into the wood. And they use it to put in I can't remember if it's pesticides or if they're trying to kill a tree. You know, they put the tree poison in there, and then you can. But if you're using that same poisoning device as an inoculation device, because I mean that's really what it is. You're inoculating with poison, I guess, but it's not the correct term. But it'd be kind of cool to see that. See if you go through with a hypo hatchet or a spray gun or whatever. Just try it out. A little backpack sprayer or something. Oh, making the morel story. Yeah, for sure. Plan is to just keep going back year after year, keep planting more and more spawn. Private property would be ideal. Lots of people have lots of acreage that is essentially vacant. Yeah, I can see that. Around here, it's the land prices have gone up so much just in the past year and a half that, man, good luck finding any acreage around this area. I don't know where it's like in Washington or anywhere else, or even Alabama. I think Josh was saying people are moving in down towards Huntsville area, so a lot of people from out west and up north. But in fact, there were places here that were a year and a half ago, I would drive down and they were just empty farmland. And now this year, like I drove by, it's the first time I'd driven by in like a year and a half, and it's just neighborhoods. There are just neighborhoods everywhere, and like a lot of the farmland that I grew up just driving by my entire life is just all neighborhoods now. Still remember Paul Stamets working as a logger and talking about putting cubensis spores into the oil so the saws inoculate all the wood chip shavings. Oh, I think I do remember something about the spore oil that for inoculating stuff. That had to have been wood lovers. See. CMZ. Family just bought a small warehouse so me and my brother can expand our mushroom business. It's like half or less than yours. I'm planning the infrastructure, tents, rooms, etc. Any advice? Plan and run variations and plan and do some more planning. And then, like, what I would do is build your op on paper and then just kind of, okay, I would be doing this and it would take me about this long and I'm going to, and just sit there and run that workflow in your head over and over again. They can go to sleep on it and then wake up the next day and then think about it again and then go eat and then come back to the plan and just get some time away from the plan and then come back to it regularly so that you can constantly see new stuff. And just when you get into the warehouse, walk the space and go, does this really feel like I've got enough room to do this? And take your measurements and like it's just plan. I mean, plan because planning's pretty cheap. It is your time, but that's what the business owner's job is, right? Is planning. So plan everything out, run your numbers, variate, plan it out again, run your numbers, variate, then start the cycle it over and over again. Planning is cheap. Once you install stuff, it is much harder to move it. So that's some advice I've got there. I'm also worried about the summer heat. It gets really hot here in Argentina, Mendoza, so maybe I will do what you do and precondition the air before the grow room. Yeah, so what we do is we have the warehouse, and then we have basically wood and plastic and foam shells built inside the warehouse. And then we have a long hall that separates incubation from fruiting, and then we put all of our heating and cooling into that room, and then allow the airflow to pull the cooling or the heating, depending on what season you're in, one direction or the other. And what that does is will allow you to keep your grow rooms negative pressured, your labs positive pressured, and you've got that preconditioning area to keep all of your HVAC stuff clean of spores. Because I have had HVAC units in grow rooms, they completely destroy the spores. Completely destroy it. It's not fun, so don't do that. Plus access space. I mean, that Great Hall acts as an access way, and people do not really plan and love infrastructural access like they should. You should be able to access every part of your op as easily as possible. I mean, you make you make some choices based on the lack of ideal that you've got. But make sure that you can access everything very easily, plan your operation out, and think about what cycles you're going to be running through constantly, and then design your op to where all of that is as convenient as possible, because your labor is the most important thing. You might consider shutting down for a few months in the summer. Temps have reached 115 in the last couple of weeks here. Yeah, I've thought about that, John. I've thought, like, August. Honestly, Samantha and I have thought about, maybe we just do some vegetable farming, and then we'll do mushrooms through the 3 seasons that do us really well, and then summertime we just shut down on vegetable garden. But we just never have done it. We've always just pushed through and struggled through. But it's hot here today. Not as hot now as it was earlier because the storm came through. When a storm came through, it cooled down, but it was like 90-something, and it's 78 now according to my computer here. John, our new place has 5 acres with a wet weather creek. I'd be willing to volunteer. That's what Lee said. My buddy is selling his house in part because over 10 days... the price went up $10,000. Property prices are getting crazy. Yeah, and my problem, though, is that if people here are selling to all these people who are coming in, they're selling their homes at historically high values, but then turning around and trying to buy a house, and they're buying a house that is more expensive than it normally would be, so they've not gained anything, and it's such a silly thing. Like, I get, selling it if you're in Seattle and then moving here to East Tennessee, you'd probably sell your house up there for $400K, come out here, buy a $180,000 house, and still have, plenty of money left over to buy a new vehicle and start your business on and all that kind of stuff. But if you're just moving from one side of town to the other, people are doing that a lot. It's weird. It is weird. I constantly find for myself, once I started working with my warehouse, I would need to rearrange things after a little bit of working. Very important to plan the space so your work is streamlined. I agree. And we have had to move stuff around and rearrange it constantly. And that's actually something, so when you have your warehouse, oh my gosh, puppy.
Elise said he thought I had a chicken. Are you chicken?
Oh, no chickie. It's just it's a flop dog, a little Muppet. Is it sounding dumb? What were we talking about? Oh, yeah, to keep stuff moved around. So oh my gosh, you were distracting.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
I'm sorry, I'm so distracting.
Oh, you are distracting too. The warehouse, we have everything as put on pallet jack stuff. So basically, if anything can be mobile, we make it mobile. And that makes it to where you can really rearrange things easily. We put everything we can on pallets, no matter what it is, even if it's just boxes. So we just grab the pallet jack and move it from one side of the warehouse to the other. What kind of agar powder can I use for culture? I use the kitchen stuff. I found that when I switched over to culinary agar, my strain started performing better. So that's what I use, is the culinary. I don't even use lab grade. Lab grade is more clear, but it's not. It's because it has fewer impurities in it, and I think that the mushrooms like the impurities in the culinary grade. Ellie, you're exactly the type of person I'm looking for. That's John DeLee. I mean, Lee, you're always the person I'm looking for. I'm thinking putting the fans in the preconditioning room, pushing the air, positive pressure in the grow room. So if your grow rooms are not insulated, right? It's just one plastic. So one of my grow rooms is not insulated. No, actually, all of my grow rooms are insulated. One of them has the pink roll foam, and the other two have the green foam, the 2-inch green foam. But all of my rooms are now. Oh my gosh, insulated, because we're putting it in an HRV, and because that heat return ventilation is getting installed next week, along with our air conditioning. We'll be able to recycle energy, and when you are recycling energy, all of a sudden insulation matters a lot. So we are doing that. Now, as far as having positive pressure, if you don't have that room sealed perfectly tight and the air balanced, you're going to have spores bleeding back into your preconditioning room. You'll have spores bleeding out everywhere. So, and I know what you're talking about. That way the fans don't get spores and humidity. So if you have a hard time finding fans, it probably will be better to positive pressure, and then just find a way to balance that positive pressure, which there are ways to do it. If fans aren't a problem for you to buy and you get, and they're not, super expensive where you guys are at, then you might want to consider the negative pressure and just cleaning your fans. No chicken, Lee. Just the flop dog. I have a 9-disc ultrasonic mister. I changed out all the discs, but only 3 are working right now. It isn't overheating, and I'm not sure what's wrong. Maybe I just need to clean it. I know you have a video. I can just go rewatch that if you think that has the answer. So there's multiple things that it could be. I don't know how long it's been since you cleaned it. You might clean it. You might have the disc tightened down pretty tight. You also, when you take the disc and you swap the discs out, sometimes the springs compress, and what I do is I'll grab those springs that have compressed and stretch them out, and then place my disc back on them and screw them back in under tension. So that, maybe you check your springs and check it to see if it needs to be cleaned. Yeah, the only reason my buddy's gaining something is because the price differences between Washington and Alabama. Well, not the only reason, but it's a big one. Yeah, I mean, that's what everybody's doing. It's crazy how many people from like New York and California and Washington and Oregon and oh man, I'm trying to think. I've seen a lot of New York plates lately. So, hello, is it me that you're looking for? Really don't care about clear agar. I load it with newts so the mic explodes on it. It's very easy to see contaminants because everything blows up. Yeah, that's the way I feel about it too. Also, just because it's not clear doesn't mean that you can't see patterns when you look under the dish. Look at it, with a light going through it. It's very easy to see the patterns, and contamination patterns become very apparent very easily. Just joined the chat. I've been looking at starting mushroom business for this year. Well, welcome, Birdman. I've been looking at going the sole proprietor route to start out versus LLC. What was your experience starting? I did LLC. Everybody tells me that you shouldn't do LLC. It's not been a problem for me. We're a partnership, so I couldn't do sole proprietor in the first place. But we could have just done a core or whatever, but we did an LLC partnership. A lot of tax people told me that I could, do better, so we might refile one day, see if we can't change it. But we'll see. Depending on where you live, yes. Is there any substitute to agar powder? It is expensive in my area. So, no, not really. And it's expensive for everybody, Ismail. The big thing with... there are some things, but none of them are good. So, what you want to do is just use agar. It might be expensive, but it goes a very long way. And the better you get with it, the further it goes. So, you can always stretch it out. So my recipe that I use has 20 grams per 500 milliliters, but you can go with 9 or 10. It just gets a little thinner. And the agar that I have at 20 grams per 500 milliliters, it's very brittle. And so the work that I do with the needles makes it very easily to break off. Lee, I don't think he is. Maybe. If he did, I've not seen him in there lately. I'm trying to prepare PDA potato dextrose agar. Can I substitute dextrose with honey? You can. Malt, pretty much any sugar source, in my opinion. I use my liquid culture premix as the sugar source. So I'll do 20 grams agar, 20 grams liquid premix. My liquid premix is 1 part malt extract and 5 parts potato dextrose. Straw pellets. Is there anything to avoid? Can you clarify your question, Ian? Like, is there anything to avoid in the straw? Is there anything to avoid when buying straw? Is there any strains that you should avoid on putting straw? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's other questions I could be asking there. So, are you looking to see, like, I buy my straw from Seth Fisher at Mushroom Media Online, and it's just wheat straw, and they come in pellet form, and I have not had any bad luck with them. So, at community college, I learned about how bacteria grow/viruses compared to fungi. They tend to have very distinct grow patterns, shapes. Fungi are often radial, circular. Bacteria vary. It's very true. And plating stuff out lately, like going more micro branching, like where we're going out and collecting and then, doing the plate swabs. The variety of patterns and colors and shapes and sizes of things and speeds, it's crazy. I'm blown away with what I'm finding from the soil growing on plates. And the colors change drastically based on what food coloring you use in your agar, if you use it. So it's very cool. Is there any store that sells Peptone for LC? Mostly it's laboratory supply stores, so I've never bought Peptone locally. I've always gone, and you can make Peptone. It's very easy to make. It's messy, and I would rather buy it. But they make Peptone from dairy products and meat and bacteria and all kinds of stuff. Basically, it's just broken down into amino acids, whatever material you're working with. So what I would do, I would just buy my Peptone off Amazon and have it shipped to me, Tony. You can buy it from Fisher Scientific. Many other laboratory supply places have Peptone. It's everywhere in the lab world. I tried the needle biopsy. I admit I hate it, and I love my X-Acto knife I've been using for the last 2 years. Still love your videos and advice. Well, John, that's okay. A lot of people don't like it at first. It takes some practice getting used to it, but since I've started doing it, I've have practiced. Like, I still use my scalpel. Don't get me wrong. I still use my scalpel. I just haven't used it in a while. No offense taken. I put the information out there. I don't own the information. I don't expect anybody to follow it religiously. I'm not looking for acolytes or disciples or anything. So, hi sir, good day. Is there such a thing about contam proof in grains? I mean, can we add something to avoid contam in grains? Not really. If you're putting your culture in grains, and you can put stuff in there to mask contaminations, you can put stuff in there to slow down contamination. But there's nothing you can do to prevent it. And even if you do put something that's makes the environment inhospitable to it and not to your fungus, then you have an issue of once you add that grain to other things, you've just added it back into a good environment, shaking it around and really spread it around. So no, the only thing is good technique. There is no magic material or material that's going to save any of you guys on that kind of stuff. It's just practice and technique.
No shortcuts.
I mean, what John said with the hydrated lime, it's true-ish. And like he did say, for some species, it's not going to work with all contamination. It's not going to work with certain mushroom species. It's really not... excuse me. It's not really an effective strategy. Better to just not use it and develop clean technique. And the faster you learn clean technique, the better. Can you paint with all the colors of the mold? I can paint with a lot of colors of mold now. I'm actually getting a lot of spalting funguses in and playing with them. Saw a video about a substitute to agar. I haven't tried it yet. Videos in Spanish though. Medio de cultivos en agar. La solución a las... Oh my goodness. So it's a vegetable gelatin. You think they use maize flour. Interesting. You can own the earth, and still all you own is earth until you can paint with all the colors. Someone's liking some Disney today. Ismail says, any method of creating low-tech humidity without humidifier. So people use boilers, but that's creating heat and humidity. There are wicking humidifiers. There are swamp coolers. All of these will humidify to a certain extent. So there is actually an interesting way to go, which is trickle towers. So imagine a ring with a screen or hardware cloth or something through it, and then you have a stack of rings, and you pump water from a reservoir up, and then let it go through a distributor bar and let it basically rain. And then you move air through that rain into your grow room, and that will oftentimes, the finer you can get the water to splash and mist, the better, it'll uptake into the air. Swamp coolers are very effective for cooling and humidifying your air to a certain point. In the UK, the only straw pellets I've found on offer are for horse stable bedding. Yeah, but if it's straw, it's straw. So I think it'll be fine. Ian the Bastard. CMZ knew the thing about agar is it doesn't really have any nutrition, and if you put a lot of agar in, it is not just a gelatin, it's very hard. It's very true. But I would be interested in what the maize stuff would do. We don't necessarily if there's something that would work, then it would work. Do you have a hard time getting a lot of? Who was it that was having trouble getting agar? Was it Birdman? No, can't remember. It's already way up there. It looks like. Scalpel wounds are much more bloody than syringe wounds. I am a clumsy needle biopsy person. Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, so in our Discord we actually have a channel called I Wish I Hadn't Done That, or I Really Wish I Hadn't Done That. And one time I had my syringe cap right here, and then I just tried to put my needle in, and I did, but when I pulled, it got stuck, and you kind of have that reflex where you go, oh shit, like that. And I went, oh shit, right into my knuckle. And I was like, oh, that fucking hurt, and pulled it out and then closed it up. And when I did, there was blood all in that cap. And then I realized that my glove just started drop constantly. And then I realized my glove was full of blood, and I pulled it off, and I had never seen something bleed. Something so small bled so much, but took a perfect little biopsy out of my knuckle. And it hurt bad. But we put that, then there's all kinds of people putting all kinds of scalpel wounds, syringe wounds, burns, and things. There's definitely some dangers in this hobby / industry. So be careful, people. Ian the Bastard, the straw pellets I found that were branded for bedding turned out to be pine pellets, so beware. So thank you, Lee. That actually is. He was asking for something to look out for. Glad you mentioned that. My last grow of chestnut, lion's mane, and blue oyster, I went LC directly to Master's Mix. It worked, but took over 55 days for them to grow in. All ended up fruiting, but none had big flushes. Wow, that's crazy. So far, all of our stuff to straw, the goat mix, has been much faster than that. I haven't tried on Master's Mix in a very long time, but surprised your blue oyster took. I've never heard of people really being able to get blue oyster straight to LC, or straight from LC to Master's Mix to do well. If you do agar to LC, super dense agar will stay together. Weaker agar will dissolve and make the LC murky. So just an example, proper agar powder lets you cut out and gets a solid piece from a plate. I'm down with Disney every day and Ghibli. I raise my children on it, not the modern. I will raise my children on it, not modern BS Disney. I agree with that too. We actually have been getting a Ghibli film every few weeks and then watching it. And so Nausicaa was watched fairly recently. Spirited Away was watched with my parents. Oh, there was one that we were... Princess Mononoke. We used to have that one, and then somebody borrowed it from us and never gave it back. They actually borrowed a lot more than that, like Howl's Moving Castle and all that stuff. But we've got Howl's Moving Castle again. I'm going to school to be a mycologist, volunteer state in Gallatin. Okay, cool. Congratulations, Tony. They don't have a major in microbiology, so I chose biology, but I'll be transferring to a 4-year university after 2 years. Do you know which classes I should take that would line up for that microbiology major? Yeah, chemistry. Biochem would be very interesting. There's a lot of stuff we could learn about mushroom chemistry. Genetics would be good. I mean, if you're talking about 2-year degree, I don't know that you're doing genetics yet other than just biology. So, I mean, for your 2-year degree, just get most of your core classes out of the way, or as many of them as possible. It's going to be a little boring maybe the first year or two, but that's what I would do. UT, University of Tennessee, has a mycology program. They're one of the few 4-year schools that, from in my understanding, that has an actual mycology program. They also have an agricultural campus here as well. So, but if you're just going to do microbiology, like a 4-year microbiology degree, I mean, obviously you're going to take micro, you're going to take biology, probably organic chem, probably just chemistry and then organic chem. And then you'll have a few electives, and I mean, it's just going to be dependent on what your school has for you. You're tired, huh, John? I feel you. I'm actually really tired as well. They use those giant swamp cooler walls in chicken farms. Okay, I didn't know that, but yeah, I've seen them out in the desert. Like homes out in the desert have them. They've even got little window units, like little window swamp coolers you can install that work really well. I've added einkorn flour to my agar. I went through every flour I could find and selected the one with the highest mineral content. I really like it, as well as nutritional yeast. I slipped with a needle once and stabbed myself right under my fingernail. It was at the end of a 12-hour day. It was hilarious and terrible. What's interesting is I find that those needle wounds don't hurt at first, and then they really hurt later. But yeah, I've stabbed myself with a couple of, and the first time I ever did it, I was like, oh crap, I just put fungal biomass straight into my bloodstream. Wonder how that's going to work. I have no ill effects yet. So, thankfully, we're positive pressured. So if you break our skin, blood comes out. Things don't tend to go in. The above YouTube is a tutorial about using straw, not in English, but you can get the gist. Very organized method. Let's see. I didn't see it, Brian. Can I make cottonseed hull spawn for oysters? So I don't know about spawn. People used to grow on cottonseed hulls a lot. The problem with cottonseed hulls, they have an amazing insulative value. They are so crazy insulative that it is hard to cook them and get them well cooked. It takes forever to cook them. And no matter how much we cooked them, we had a hard time getting them to perfectly clean. Since you mentioned the goat mix, I've been adding straw to everything, considering adding it to grain bags. And since you're doing straw spawn, maybe like 25% oats, 75% straw. Yeah, like we're going to trial different types of straw spawn. But yeah, it's been crazy. I've been having my guys about once a week. We're actually trialing pasteurized straw spawn, since straw is a selective substrate. So we're doing about 10 5-pound blocks of straw pellets every week, and then cooking those in the steamer, and then bringing those inside and inoculating them with liquid culture. And they are growing in very well. And then we're going to see if the pasteurized straw can be an effective way to do spawn. And if that's the case, then we'll probably start offering straw spawn for people. And we'll be able to reduce our spawn cost quite a bit. So we'll have two different grades. We'll have a high cost grain spawn, and then probably a low cost in 3 varieties of low cost straw spawn if it works. We're not even sure that it's going to work yet. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't. The trials are working just as I expected them to, but that said, of course, things can change at any time, so don't take what I'm saying there as gospel. But John, I think that 25% oats, 75% straw would be I've been thinking about mixed spawn types like that, and thinking that a variable spawn is probably the way to go. Hey guys, awesome vids. Have you experimented with a more eco-friendly container, even if it's not reusable? Craig, that is something I'm interested in. I have not done any experimentation with it. I have talked to a few... Oh, sorry about that. I have talked to a few chemists about the biodegradable bags that Unicorn's really pushing as biodegradable. Most of the chemists that I have talked to don't seem very convinced. That does not mean that Unicorn is not selling a biodegradable bag. It just means that, these chemists that I talked to were like, well, what it really is this stuff isn't tested yet. So we don't know if even the biodegradable bags are good. Now, Ben and I have been looking at, because we can go from liquid culture straight to the goat mix, we are now looking at no shaking of bags, which means that rigid containers are all of a sudden back in style. So we are looking at rigid containers that could be used in the bagging process, basically, the fruit block production, and can then be sealed, filtered, and inoculated using liquid culture. And if not liquid culture, then we've been thinking about stick spawn. I had someone from Europe tell me that stick spawn's been used in Europe for a very long time, and they do love their stick spawn methods, because it's a no shake method as well. You just push a stick through the wall of the plastic into the block. When I tried that, they took longer to grow in, though. I wondered about using cotton hulls as well, since we have a big cotton farm presence in West Tennessee. Yeah, we do. I mean, Lee, they're cheap and they're easy for me to find. I've always been able to find cottonseed hulls. The problem I had was just they are so terrible to cook and so not clean. I'm testing an air... Actually, I'm trying to think the last time we used them. Were we still doing water bath pasteurization back then? And if that's the case, maybe we could steam them. Or maybe we did try to steam them. Oh man, that's been years ago since we last trialed cottonseed hulls. It wouldn't work through our bagger, though, I can about tell you that. I'm testing an air handler using water. It draws outside air into a falling water column. I'm happy so far. It's not a final product as I keep changing it. Advantage is cheap orientation. Yeah, the tower I was just talking about. That's a great idea. Or at least I think it's a great idea. What's happening, Swamp Monster? What's going on, Simon Kozlowski. I'm sure I butchered your name. I'm sorry. Any idea what's going on when oysters produce thick mats, fibrous feet, where the base of the stem joins the block? Lots of love to you, Sam, and everyone here. Well, thank you, sir. To answer your question, the thick mat that happens at the feet is usually when the strain... It's caused, by higher than normal humidity, can cause your mushrooms to want to revert back to a vegetative form, or your mushroom is getting old and it's now going, all right, I've spored out all I'm going to spore and I'm looking to regrow. This is why people use stem butt spawn. Those stem butts will oftentimes leap off really quickly. So if you cut your cluster off, right, you've got your stem butts left. A lot of people will wrap those in wet cardboard and let that grow and use that as cardboard spawn. Which school offers a mycology program? I'm thinking of transferring to SUNY ESF after these 2 years because they're the only school I know that offers a degree in mycology. University of Tennessee in Knoxville, so UTK, is the only one I know of that has a mycology program. I know other schools do. I didn't know SUNY ESF did. Also, ISO. Anyone have experience top fruiting cover files on bags of sterilized goat mix? Pasteurizing poo is the worst. So, if you're asking what I think you're asking, I know people who have done it, and the goat mix works very well, but it is better to have a small scoop of like black cow manure compost in it. And it's still pretty stinky from my understanding. Sir, in your experience, what do you think is the best way or additives to make mycelium colonize faster the 1 liter bottle of grain? So what do you think is the best way? So liquid culture is usually the fastest way to inoculate grain. If you have a 1 liter bottle of grain and you leave some headspace, so some empty space on the top, you can liquid culture, let it drain all the way down, grow all the way through, and then just take it, hold it upside down, bust it up, shake it around, spread that, and then you can get it growing a lot faster. From what I've seen, most people who do the bottle spawn, they are filling it up very close to the top, and then top spawning, and then it grows all the way down. If you can shake that up after it's grown a bit, then it will grow in much faster. That's why when you see my jars, when I have jars with grain in them, they're only about 2/3 of the way full. I mix my oat spawn with 25% sawdust. The idea is that it helps give it more moisture, more inoculation points, and the mycelium gets accustomed to the sawdust before it goes to bulk sub. I don't know how much it helps. So I do that with straw, and it seems like it works really well for me. Can I make it by transferring colonized sorghum grain to sterilize cottonseed hull for bulking the spawn? Can you make... so you were the one asking about cottonseed. Can I make cottonseed hull spawn for oysters? Can I make it by transferring colonized sorghum grain to sterilize cottonseed hull for bulking the spawn? Yes, you can. From my understanding, most people use cottonseed hulls for fruiting blocks because it's so terrible to work with, instead of using it as spawn. I caught you live, almost missed it. Well, welcome, Christum. I don't know how I'm going to say that, but appreciate your content, always looking forward to, and all the work y'all do is fire. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's very flattering. Do you have anything on your bucket list that you wish mycologists would expand more on and in research? So, yes, but it's probably too many things to everything. Yeah. I don't even know where to begin. The attine ants. I feel like there's a lot of work that can be done with attine ants. Attine ants are the fungus farming ants, so leaf cutters and they live, pretty much solely on this fungus and its metabolites. And from my understanding, all the attine ants in the world are working with clonal propagation. It'd be very interesting to see how they, and I know some of how they keep a clean room. Like ants, for instance, they have ants that ring the entrance and are literally in there just breathing by all the entrances and the airways. And what it is they have pores that as they're breathing, and what they're doing is they're catching all the spores and bacterial endospores and things like that. They're literally cleaning the air as it's coming through the ant colony. But I mean, how else? They're in soil, so how are these ants getting such clean work? I would love to see more research, on how are they getting such sterile work, how they've managed to keep a clone going without enzyme blindness and all this stuff. I can't even remember how long it's been that they've been keeping this clone going. When a queen ant leaves, they're bred they're being raised up in the nest. They're about to go off for their nuptial flights to get, inseminated. They have a little pocket right here in their chest, basically. I recognize they don't have chests the way we do, but they have a little pocket right here, and they stuff it with a little bit of culture from their mother nest. And then when they leave, that clone is grown in the new nest. And this clonal propagation has been going on forever. As far as I know, the fungus itself can no longer sexually reproduce. And the ants can't live without it, and it can't live without the ants. Or if it can live without the ants, it still just can't sexually reproduce. It's weird stuff. There's a lot of research to be done there. If you're talking about production mycologists, There's a crap ton of work to be done. There's fungal pathology. There is like fungal biomaterials. So I am kind of obsessed with the idea of fungal materials. There's this chick on Instagram called Kate the Enigma. She made a myco canoe. So she made a canoe out of mushroom substrate, out of fungus and the substrate. She's made mason bee houses, which is the perfect thing for fungus, in my opinion. That's actually something I've been thinking a lot about ever since seeing that, is like how interesting it would be to make materials for your garden space out of fungus. I'm sure it'll break down pretty quick, but you can literally give like mason bees a leg up because it is up. This thing is hanging up in the air. It's and dried out. And she focuses on like micromaterials, like things that repel water, like water repellents, the ability to repel water by different funguses and different strains and species, and it's cool stuff. And if you talk to Ben Erickson, he is convinced that fungal materials are complete BS. But I think fungal materials they've got a lot of promise in very specific ways. I would love to see that work. And then you have food processing, which, I mean, again, like, what can we do with fungus? It's great to have mushrooms and then sell those to chefs who then cook them up into delicious foods. But we're talking like amino acid powders. We're talking, oh my gosh, like fungus produces a ton of chitin. There are chitin supplements and all these different things. Animal feeds and processing it into... I mean, heck, people are eating cricket powder, for heaven's sake. So maybe you make a oyster mushroom flour or powder or whatever that is then used as actual large-grade supplements or additives in... I mean, I don't even know where to stop, man. Like, you got me on a roll. I'm going to stop there because I don't want to throw too much out there, but it's just from production, like everything. Everything in mycology is wide open right now. The fruit is so low hanging that anyone can go pluck it and learn something unique. And that's kind of what drew me to mushrooms in the first place, which is why you see me doing what I'm doing. But because the industry is so early on, oftentimes a lot of us that want to do research are actually getting into the grind of production, and that makes it hard to do research or videos. So I'm actually trying to remove myself from my own mushroom farm so that I can focus on videos, which is actually somehow harder to do now that I'm removing myself from the mushroom farm and I'm wanting to do the research. It's just, there's just a lot of crazy stuff out there. So, Tony, I hope that's not too much for your question. Things to do to get a good second flush. I don't do anything to get a good second flush. I literally just... So the main thing I do is I hydrate my blocks to 60%, relatively. And that supports a good second flush. So I don't do anything. I pick my mushrooms off for a first flush, and then I leave my blocks there. And when they produce the second flush, I pull the blocks off, or pull the mushrooms off. I don't do anything else. I'd love to see and hear more about cultivation of mycorrhizal species. So Birdman, that's another place. So there is a great book called Mycorrhizal Planet by Michael Phillips. Mycorrhizal Planet: How Symbiotic Fungi Work with Roots to Support Plant Health and Build Soil Fertility by Michael Phillips. And that book has been very good. It's Kate the Enigma, Busby. But Michael Phillips is obviously well versed in this. I don't know anything else about him other than this book. It's a great book, from the biology aspect to some applications to just, solving your curiosity. It's been a fantastic book. So that's one I highly suggest if you're interested in mycorrhizal stuff. And there is a whole lot of work to be done in that space as well. CMZ says, I keep Attine ants. They are fascinating, also kind of an inspiration to being a mushroom farmer, seeing as though they were the ones of the first. They also love mushrooms to feed to their own fungus. Really? I didn't expect that. Someday when I have the time, I'll try to grow some of their fungus on agar and see how it goes. I have some crazy ideas like temp or whatever, that mycelium food some people eat. Can't recall the name. So I've always wanted to raise Attine ants. I know a guy, Sydney Over Singleton on Facebook, who's in the mushroom growing groups and koji making groups and a bunch of other stuff. And he makes a morel tempeh, so it's literally just soybeans with morel grown through it that looks delicious. But he raises Attine ants at his job, and they have fairly large colonies, and it's really cool to watch a lot of his work. Fruiting oysters on top or side, which one is good for yield? I prefer mine on the side all day long. I prefer to top fruit my chestnuts. I prefer to top fruit... chestnuts, really. Shiitake and golden enoki, I don't really top fruit. I fruit all the way around the block. And then oysters, king oysters, black poplars, which we're going to trial black poplars and top fruiting here soon, and to see if we can increase the yield. But oysters, king oysters, hericiums, pretty much anything else we grow on by side fruiting. The yield might be a little less on side fruiting, but the labor is lower, the look of the mushrooms is better, so, quality. Tempeh, yep. Yeah, I've seen Sydney Over Singleton do the morel tempeh. It looks delicious. What about composting with mushrooms? So if you're doing true compost, your compost pile should be heating up to a point, I believe, where the fungus is not going to do well. It will probably die. You might be able to do certain hot weather species like paddy straw mushrooms. I think Trad Cotter of Mushroom Mountain said that he was able to get paddy straw mushrooms to grow only in his compost pile. It was the only place he was ever able to get them to fruit. It was in the middle of the summer, as hot as it could possibly be. His pile was really hot, and then the mushrooms fruited. I've had paddy straw cultures before, and they don't even like room temperature. They do really poorly even at room temperature. They need it hot. So now that I have an incubator, a lab incubator, probably could raise them. But then the question is why? I'm not going to be able to produce them in my grow rooms. So, milky mushrooms. Why am I not trying those this summer? People in India grow milky mushrooms a lot like you would oysters, and I have never grown them. I tried to grow them one time and had some bad luck. I really want to try them again, but I want to get the strain from somewhere else because where I got this strain this last time, I don't trust it. So, where am I? I've lost myself in the chat. Let's see, what's her handle again? Kate the Enigma. So I think it's Enigma EG. Instead of IG, but yeah, it's Kate the Enigma, and I think it's like one word, or maybe there's an underscore or something like that. I don't know. I know she was doing that Myco Canoe, so maybe you might try hashtag Myco Canoe and see if she comes up if you can't find her directly. But she does she's got video of her out there paddling around in that little Myco Canoe out in the lake. So definitely was not too much. I could talk mycology all day. Fair enough, Tony. I could too. If you get me passionate, I can talk about it all day long. Yeah. So, and the research side is something I'm still very, very, very passionate about. And mycomaterials is something that I've thought for the longest time. If we can grow a lot of things that we use. In fact, one of the things I would like to try, but have not had the resources, time, or anything to devote to it, I want to... This is going to sound so stupid. I want to grow out a big sheet, like a big 4x8 sheet of mushroom sub, and then dry it out. Maybe 3/4 inch, that's all. And basically a piece of plywood. I want to grow a piece of plywood dry it, and then hang it up on our Maslow at Ben's Man of War Manufacturing, and then have them cut designs into the just to see if we can. Can we take it and then grow a material out of basically particles that then have a binder, and then just cut designs and stuff into it, cut shapes out of it, use it as an actual material, put screws through it, hang it up, that kind of stuff. I think micromaterials is probably where I am most interested, other than ecology. I am obsessed with this idea of industrial ecology. I think that we can, through microbiology, largely solve a lot of the problems of indoor and urban farming. I mean, obviously you can't do all of it. You've got lighting and there's a lot of other issues to work out. But microbes have such a raw productive power that is in such a truncated timeline that you can really grow your feedstocks for all kinds of different things. And maybe it can't compete with the way the system is right now on many things. But if you're talking about making cities more sustainable, or going to Mars and having a production ecology, is the sound dumb? If have a production ecology on other planets, or something that you can take with you, it's going to be a long time before we have trees on Mars. So you got to work with straw, right? And clonal technologies. So because seed production, fruit production takes a lot more light and energy in plants. Vegetative growth doesn't take quite as much, though obviously it does better when it's got light. I mean, there's just a bunch of... I'm getting off on a big tangent, so I'm going to try to curb that a little. Awesome. I'll definitely be looking to get a copy. Thank you for the recommendation. Yeah, absolutely. Paddy straw mushrooms are great for low-tech mushroom farming. I have heard that. It's again, Tread Cotter was the one that I've heard about doing it. I've seen a lot of people in Asia grow them, and I think if you're in like Florida, I need to tell Dimitri about this. But Florida, I bet Rocket City. I don't know if you're still on, but man, it might get hot enough where you're at to do some paddy straw or milky mushrooms. South Texas. I mean, if you're out there in the Arizona desert and stuff like that, some of these places where it's so hot during the summer, you might literally be able to allow your room to be really hot, and then just grow those. Oh, yeah. All right. Take it easy, Lee. All right. Let's see. I'm not thinking traditional compost, more for fermented food waste compost. Curious to know the reaching using the inoculated brand with mushrooms waste. I'm not, sorry, CRS, not entirely sure what you're saying. Composting with mushrooms. Sorry, not the traditional compost, more for fermented food waste compost. Curious to know the brand with mushroom waste. Okay. In my experience, mushrooms compost really hot, so I imagine it would work, but they do generate a lot of heat. So you still have the same issue, but yeah, I mean, you can compost. We compost with it all day long. Mushroom substrates, mushrooms with food waste. Though we are about to switch over to vermicomposting. I'm about to start putting my mushrooms and substrate into worm bins that I am starting to seed over here. Well, it'll take a while to get our worm populations up to the levels that I want, but I have all the substrate in the world to do that with, and we're going to build basically a shelf system with bins that drain into a central unit that then drain into a reservoir. That reservoir will be where we collect all the worm wee and the wet material. All that wet material will go into fish tanks, plant fertilizers, etc. We'll be able to take that mushroom, the vermicompost, and then bag it up, sell it, use it in our gardens. Somebody was asking about the poo-loving mushrooms. Use worm castings instead. Worm castings don't stink the way cow manure compost does, right? So, or manure-loving, dung-loving species, worm castings actually work as a poo, not supplement, a poo replacement, I guess. And they don't stink during pasteurization the way the cow manure compost does or something. So whoever was asking me about that, maybe that. Sorry, I'm sir, can we make simplest and easiest LC how? So Tito, I mean, I've got a video on it, but the easiest way, are you looking low tech? So you're gonna need a pressure cooker no matter what, but unless you want to try tyndallization, but I do not recommend tyndallization. It is not an effective form of sterilization. It is only pasteurization, and it's not even all that effective at that. But I mean, literally 500 milliliters of water. I don't remember what the you can use Caro. I've seen people use brown sugar. I've seen people use honey. I've seen people even use dog food. There's like a million different recipes out there, man. I don't even know which one would be the easiest. All I can tell you is what I recommend, and I recommend the way I do it. So, which is with malt and potato dextrose. Now, you can just go with potato dextrose or just malt, and potato dextrose works really well and is available in far more countries than malt extract is. But it's still, like, if you have potatoes, you can literally cook your potatoes in water, eat your potatoes, and then use your potato water as liquid culture. You have to cook it at a certain temperature at a certain amount of time, cook it for a certain way, and I would look that up, like how to get potato dextrose out of potatoes, and then you can still eat your potatoes. Let's see, where was I? Found it. I don't know what you found, but good. Can you grow first and second flush with same weight and quality, say 2 times 2 pound fruit bodies? I don't know of a way to do that, Vincent. Unless you just pick early. If you pick your first flush early, your second flush will usually be bigger, but it's still not a good control. And I haven't found a way to do it. This is sounded dumb. I haven't found a way to do it reliably. Yeah, Rocket, I don't remember how hot it gets where you're at. I know it's warmer than here, even though you're not that much further south than me, but we're up here in the higher elevations. I know you guys get real hot down in Huntsville. And I think that Milky's will produce at like in the 80s and higher. So honestly, Rocket, in fact, I might talk to Eric Lohman at Main Cabin Stem and see if he can source me. I guess I'd talk to Tyler, but see if they can source me a really reliable strain of Milky mushroom. Because again, like I said, I got it from someone here, but I don't trust the strain. So, how many kilograms of grain spawn can I make from one Petri dish with getting fast colonization time? So that depends on what you mean by fast colonization time. This is sounding dumb. I keep doing that. I need to stop. But a kilogram is 2.2 pounds, right? Roughly. So technically a Petri dish can make 1 million pounds of grain because you'll do grain to grain to grain transfers. So, what I would do if I was going to try to grow a lot of kilograms of grain spawn would be to take my Petri dish and dice it up and then dump the whole thing in a 5-pound bag. So about a 2 kilogram bag of, or like, what was that, 2.5 kilograms, I guess, of grain. Let that grow in, mix it up, let it grow in. Once it's ready to use, you can take that 5-pound bag. I'm going to use pounds because it's easier for me. Just I'm going to stop translating it. But the 5 pounds you can do anywhere from, I think there for a long time I was doing a 1% spawn rate. So if you take 5 pounds and then spawn at a 1% spawn rate, you can get tons and tons and tons of pounds of grain spawn. Then you can take that and expand each one of those bags. So, if you take one 5-pound bag and you put that into about 100 pounds of spawn, so one 5-pound bag to 100 pounds you could do, and then you go with those 100 bags and you inoculate 100 bags with each one of those 100 bags, 100 5-pound bags, now you're talking like it has just grown crazily. So that's the fastest way to get spawn that way, Ismail. Lee said bye, Sam. Saw that. He's gone, but what did he see?
So he's leaving. He said bye. And I went bye.
Oh, gotcha. I was like, were you doing something behind me and I didn't catch it?
Always.
But always. Yule Adamus. Mycelium infused husk and lava rock on massive wall farming fields. What about that? I guess you could compost mushrooms with bokashi. What is bokashi? Bokashi. Bokashi is an anaerobic process that relies on inoculated bran to ferment kitchen waste, including meat and dairy, and to say, okay. I've never heard of bokashi. I am going to look it up and go with it from now on. Oh my gosh, it tickles so bad. You walked away. Could you let Sam know I got back to her on Discord? You guys are amazing, and I thank both of you all for the work you put into the videos and Patreon. Your whole organization is like a rock star. Thank you, James. I appreciate that. Oh, it was ferns. That's what you had. I was wondering what was tickling so bad. Yeah, James, you're very welcome, man. Hey, so I'm hoping that Patreon gets better and better, because already it's starting to feel a lot better. I got all those rewards out today. The artwork went out today.
And I have even more planned.
And she's got a lot more artwork going out, yeah. And then, which I think you got artwork, and of course you got the Discord access, and then the discount code. Yeah, I think I said that to you today too. I think that was your rewards, but I'm liking the Patreon. It's getting a good feel to it. It's starting to come together. Let's see. Which way is good fruiting from one hole or multiple oysters? Ismail, that depends on what you want to do. But I like as few holes as possible. That way you get big, beautiful clusters. If you do a bunch of holes, you'll get the same weight, just in a bunch of little clusters. Adama says dog food and chicken food do work. Yeah, so I've heard of that. Like, a lot of people have used that. I'm not sure where that tech came from, but I've seen it a lot. So, yep, I'm talking about bokashi, referring to the inoculated bran, using bokashi to toss in old mushrooms or waste. But also, what about using that inoculated bran to grow mushrooms? I used a little EM1 after pasteurizing aspinall to keep testing. Oh, okay, so that's a different thing. So I've never heard of bokashi. I can't comment on it. I'll look it up. It looks interesting. There are so many different ways to break down materials in this world that I am just getting into vermicomposting, and then seeing how people will take containers of water and break up. I saw this on William Padilla Brown's Apex Grower video, where he was talking about the vermicomposting. The guy had, in between the worm towers, he had a bucket or of some sort of thing with an aerator in it, and there was water, and it was constantly bubbling, and he was breaking up substrate into it, and then saying that he was having much better results for the worms if he put it in there and let it break down a little bit in that aerator. I don't know what that technique's called, but it got me on, like, there's a billion different ways to break down stuff. Like, I am so very interested in all of it. So I will definitely look up this bokashi method. How mushrooms are turned into bacon and styrofoam, worldwide waste. That would be cool to look at. The styrofoam, that's a mycomaterial. I've seen the way they grow that kind of stuff. The bacon, I think there's some food processing that goes into that, but that's, again, I mean, that's two of the things I'm very interested in is food processing and then, of course, the mycomaterials. The problem I run into is I'm so interested in everything that I find it really hard to sit down and really focus on one thing. And I like to just lay back and just think about a billion different things, and I bounce from one thing to another to another to another, and it allows me to bring stuff from one industry to another for ourselves, but it makes me a really bad hourly worker. So,
So true.
She said it's so true. Everyone's job at the shop is literally to just basically clean up after me, because I'll just go and work on this thing, get bored, and then go work on this thing, and then they're like, okay, well, let's get this system going, get it all worked out. Okay. Yeah, Rocket, I think we should try. Can you give a block an IV to keep its fluid level up? So that is something that has been talked about for years. People have tried it. I have not. Sam Keith said he's heading this way. Did you forget to go by the bank for me? I'll see you when you get back. Thank you, baby. See you soon.
Is this correct?
That's correct. So, I knew you'd forget me.
I didn't forget you. Just I'm here.
Ah.
Something else.
So, Thomas, to go back to your question about the IV, I've never seen anybody do it. And people have talked about it for a long time. I have tried to inject blocks with sterile water. From my understanding, the stuff gets gets contaminated over time that it's not really worth rehydrating. When you can just make more clean blocks and get that old contaminated stuff out of your room. At Christum, Bokashi brand is inoculated with EM1. That is lactobacillus or friendly bacteria. Interesting. You'll love it. Worms love Bokashi, especially black soldier flies. Interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. I'll definitely look into this stuff. I've been doing grain to grain for like a year or more. If I see problems, I go back to agar. But I haven't had much, though the oysters I grow are pretty aggressive, so I don't know how viable it would be for other species. Oysters are definitely the best way to go with that. So, the reason why we all start with oysters is because of their aggression and that they grow in a wide range of materials. So, they're very forgiving for the new person to grow. As you get into more and more advanced species, it takes more care, more technique. So what I normally teach on my YouTube channel is how to grow oysters and a bunch of fast growing white rot species. And I've actually had some people, Silver Leapers, I think was the name, their handle, that were getting on there and saying, well, like, this stuff won't work. You need, like, especially if it will only work for, like, the quick white rot funguses, which is fine, because that's what we're trying to get into. As we go into more advanced topics, spalting funguses, like the Elf's Cup is incredibly slow. There are a million other species of fungus that are going to be useful in the future, and each one of them you can't just apply the same conditions to everything. You're going to have to go into the specifics. So, yeah, I mean, it's just that we have that aggression working for us in the early stages. And if you never want to do anything other than white rot funguses, then great. If you want to do other things, then yeah, you got to up your game, up your technique. You won't be able to get away with doing grain to grain for a year or more. You'll have to, and really a year or more is not really a timeline, right? Like, you might be going from grain to grain once a quarter and then putting it in the fridge, and that's only 4 transfers. So really what you're talking about is transfers. That's the real timeline. So, if you're doing 50 transfers instead of 4 in a year, that's a big difference, right? Can you go 50 transfers from sterile? And if you have sterile work, most likely you can, but it gets more difficult. So I don't see that you've done anything wrong, ZMZ. I think it's going to be interesting to see how far you can push it. And you two are absolutely adorable, and I got it all. Thank you. You're very welcome, James. Thank you. Sir, is senescence real? Yes and no. Senescence is absolutely real. If you're talking about with oyster mushrooms and stuff, it's more enzyme blindness. So basically think diabetes instead of old age. Mushrooms don't age. Mushrooms age, but they don't age the way we do. They age in a very... they age differently. They have a lot of stopgap measures built into the organism, their genetic code, the way they work, that basically makes them immortal. They don't age the way we do, but they do develop enzyme blindness if they're fed only sugar. So think about this. Mushroom is growing on wood. That wood is a cellulose chain wrapped in a lignin chain, right? That lignin protects the cellulose inside. That cellulose is ooey gooey, super wonderful carbohydrate sugariness, right? But the white rot fungus, which white rot fungus is what breaks down lignin, that's so all of the oil that we have in the world was made before white rot fungus evolved and into existence. Once it evolved, we stopped having oil because that white rot fungus breaks down the lignin chains. Lignin was the plant adaptation to protect itself and give itself rigidity so it can compete better. So lignin is tough and complex, hard to break down. Cellulose and hemicelluloses especially are very simple, easy to break down, sugary and fatty and very good. So white rot fungus comes across the lignin, it breaks it down, having to specifically put out metabolites to break down that lignin. It has to exercise itself on that lignin, and then it gets into that sugar, and it gets a little bit of sugar, just enough to get it going, and breaking down the next piece of the lignin chain to get to the next carbohydrate source, and to continue on. We are putting our fungus on agar, a non-nutritive substance with sugar as the energy source, and peptone as the amino acid source, right? That's why I like to put a little bit of straw dust and soy hull dust in my agar so it has other nutrients that it's working with. And I will leave my dish, the sugar allows the mushrooms to grow really fast, and then I leave my fungus on a plate for a very long time, and it has to pull from, the food that is there. So basically what we're talking about is if we just feed it sugar, and then grain, which is sugar, and then more sugar, and then more sugar, eventually what happens is it loses the ability, it becomes blind to making the enzyme that breaks down the lignin, right? It goes, oh, I don't know what to do with this. Give me my sugar, please. And you're like, well, no sugar for you. Break that stuff down. And it's like, I'm too weak. I don't know how to do this. Well, that's enzyme blindness. And that's what people have been confusing with senescence for so long. So liquid culture, interestingly enough, Peter McCoy talks about that in his book. You can interrupt senescence, enzyme blindness, in liquid culture because the constant stressor of stirring and ripping the mycelium apart doesn't fully reset it, I think, but what he was saying is it really staves that off. And so it becomes a wonderful thing for us, liquid culture growers, so that it basically holds off what other people call senescence. So Tito, I hope that helps you. Like, that's the best explanation I can come across on that is putting it basically mushroom diabetes. They forget how to eat anything but sugar. Any tip on how to dry mushrooms? So a dehydrator, just hot air. I like to cook mine a little higher, around 200 degrees or so. and really dry them out for a couple hours till they're cracker dry, basically where they will pull, crunch like crackers, and then, powder them or just throw them in a Mylar bag with an oxygen absorber, seal it up, throw it in a 5-gallon bucket, close it off, and bam, you've got emergency food storage amino acids. Brian Lee, they made styrofoam from mycelia. Take a look if you... Yeah, I've seen that. It's mycelium, unless... I mean, if you're talking about the packaging material stuff, yeah, I've seen that. The micromaterials, that was one of the first micromaterials I really saw, where they are growing molds for, like, IKEA, I think, is using this mycelium styrofoam. Unless you're talking about, like, actually took it and then processed it into something else. I haven't seen that. But I have seen where they grow out a type of styrofoam. I thought about impregnating a block with something like a sponge in the middle to inject water in order to rehydrate. Never tried it. So, John, on that thought, I haven't told a lot of people this. I'm planning to do a video on it, but we're 2 hours into a live stream, so it's not like it's going to be a really accessible, piece of information. But I've had a bunch of people on the Discord starting to try it, and one person in particular who's had amazing results. Water crystals. Miracle Grow water crystals. I don't remember our notes, and I don't remember what he said he did, but basically, I think he was hydrating all of his water crystals and then basically just having them in a bucket and then scooping them in the bag. But they survive heat treatment. They are very safe to use. They are classified for organic gardening if people are into organic. And you can basically, I turned my 12-pound blocks into like a 19-pound block or 20-pound block or something like that. No more solid material. All of that was water weight. But my blocks were not overly saturated because of how much water, because of the water crystals. So what was really cool was, on oysters, my first flush wasn't really all that affected, but my second and third flush was freaking enormous. On my Hericium clusters, on my first flush, I got like 5-pound first flushes on all of my Hericiums. But, yeah, they normally uses it as a casing layer. But the other guy that tried this said that his first flushes on Hericium weren't any better, but holy crap, his second flushes were amazing. Same thing with oysters. His second flushes were he said, I think it was basically the same thing I had. I think he said he got bigger on his Hericium, but I can't remember. He's at a Pink Floyd concert now. So, or Pink Floyd cover band concert. But it was amazing. Like, it completely made second flushes absolutely worth it. Not really a good idea to put bokashi in worm bins. It's very acidic. Best to bury it in the garden, but not plant on top of it for more than a month or so. Okay, I'll try to remember that. I mean, I'll definitely look into it before I start using it. Again, planting is cheap. Wrong action is expensive. But then again, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing wrong. So, conflicting wisdom. I'll have to remember that when I write my book of wisdom. What makes pinning late, and any tip for pin on triggers? So, pinning, what do you mean pinning late? So sometimes things won't pin because they're stressed, like the temperature's not quite right. Sometimes things don't pin until they run out of food. Every strain behaves differently, and every species definitely behaves differently. But I mean, even then, like, I have strains that were bred during the same breeding trial, right? So let's say I take a blue and a snow, which was which is one of my most popular series that I've produced, is that blue snow cross. The blue and the snow produced BS8, BS26, Mother of Pearl, and Cool Touch. All four of those came from the exact same cross. All four of them behave very differently. They have some similarities, a couple of, like, these two have similarities, these two have similarities, these two, whatever. They're similar in different ways, but they are very different from each other, sometimes incredibly different. And it's going to be so crazy for me to try to figure out what's causing your late pinning because of that variableness, that it's one of those things you're just going to have to, like, trial and figure out. it's not easy for me to just sit down and do it. Like I said, it can be anything from lighting to temperature to just your strain genetics being that way to oversaturation of some blocks, but other blocks are not. It's going to be very, 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 very variable and very set on your specific circumstances. What's up, buddy?
Problem fixed. 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
It is.
If you boil wood chips, fuel pellets, and add that water to agar without sugar, would that rejuvenate plates suffering from enzyme blindness? How many generations before I can go back to sugary agar? I don't know the answer to that last one. I've not had a problem with enzyme blindness or senescence. But I just go through a regular routine. So you can do that. You definitely want some wood in there, like some actual sawdust. I don't know if lignin is water soluble. I think cellulose has got some water soluble qualities to it. So I don't know the answer, John. I will say, so I've started practicing when I breed mushrooms on agar. I am now doing a agar with no sugar and whatever substrate I want to grow these on, and then I germinate the spores on that. So from the very beginning, I'm only getting strains that do well on that substrate. But as far as protecting from enzyme blindness, I'm not sure. People worry about it a lot more. If you are growing mushrooms and not really breeding and caretaking of strains, you don't really have to worry about senescence. Just order another strain in to replace it. If you're working with liquid culture, honestly, I have got a couple of jars that are now like 4 or 5 times liquid culture to liquid culture, trying to see how far I can push it. And I'm seeing, I don't know, I've not restarted these jars in like 2 years, and they're still going strong. So I don't even know what to tell you. Sorry, someone distracted me outside. I don't even know what to tell you on like what about enzyme blindness. Like it's a complete unknown to me. But oh yeah, absolutely. You're very welcome, CMZ. Enjoy your day. So Paul Stamos talks about. Oh wait. Oh, CMZ, I'm sorry. I was going to answer your question next. So we can stop senescence by simply mixing up their food. From research I've done, senescence doesn't happen at least not in the majority of gourmet species. Yeah, it doesn't. Or enzyme blindness. Yeah. Paul Stamos talks about the water crystals in growing gourmet and medicinal mushrooms. Not in this application you just mentioned. Holy cow, 19-pound block. Oh my goodness. Yeah. You talk about getting some monster shoulders. Those 19-pound blocks, shaking those things. Which is actually why I'm happy that we can do, if I can do the water crystals and a 19-pound block and then do liquid culture inoculation, with no shaking, that's going to change my life. I've been losing too much moisture to the air, trying to find out how to get more water into the substrate without oversaturating. This is the ticket. Yeah, there you go. So, you're going to have to do some testing to see what the saturation level of the crystals are. The way I did it was I put the water crystals in the bag, and then the pellets, and then the water came in at the same time the pellets did, and we, found the saturation point, and said, okay, for this many grams of water crystals, we can do this much more poundage in water, and then we extended the tube and made that to where that's what dumped out. However, I like the way Ben Dooling did it, which was did his block like normal, but in the process, he had already hydrated crystals that you can then take, out, and that way you're not scooping up a bunch of water with them. You're only getting wet crystals and throwing a certain amount of those in a bag. And that seems like it worked really well for him. And then you cook it. You think the water crystals were a reservoir for nutrients? Brian, I've wondered that myself. Because there's got to be some water-soluble stuff. So if you're doing it Ben's way, probably not acting much as a reservoir for nutrients, except for those Miracle Grow ones literally have Miracle Grow in them. So it's literally just minerals, vitamins and minerals for the plants. And maybe that actually did add something. I don't know. But I would think that they were certainly water reservoirs. And that's the thing, is that a mushroom block runs out of water long before it runs out of food. So if you can support higher amounts of water in it, it becomes more effective on the same amount of food. 100 degrees outside, ultrasonic only operating at 33% capacity. Granted, things will be better when it cools down, but this could really improve my runs over the next months. Yeah, it could. And you definitely want to talk to John if do the stuff I was talking about with the humidifier. But also, if you got yours from House of Hydro, talk to John. Dude has got great customer service. He'll help you figure out your problem. He'll probably know exactly what it is. Like the way I can look at a picture of mushrooms and be like, your fresh air's too low, your lighting's not high enough, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's just it's reps. I only restart liquid culture when I'm in fear of contamination. LC to LC works very well for me, and starting to think I'm afraid of enzyme blindness just because I've heard about it, not seeing it. Yeah, so here's the thing. If you have a culture slant or a strain bank that you can rebuy that strain from, who cares? Just make your liquid culture, Don't do any extra work you don't have to do. Unless you are strain banking. Like, any strains you create or any strains that you've had to import from another country and can't get easily again, or wild strains that you've cloned, yes, absolutely take care of those. You don't want to see senescence in them. But beyond that, if you can just get the stuff from somewhere else, yeah, just get it somewhere else, or from a culture slant. Like, I literally have done needle biopsy from a culture slant, pulled it out of the fridge, did the culture slant, did the needle biopsy, put it in agar, grew out perfect. Just over and over again. Whew. 2 hours and 16 minutes. I was just gonna say, I'm also working on the LC to production. No shake. Praise the water crystals. Praise the water crystals. Indeed. Just like you, it's crazy. Many strains will just not jump off into woody substrates, but if you just add straw, it'll gobble it up. So that's actually really interesting. It sounded dumb. Straw has lignin in it, but very little. It's far more. So let's say you have lignin heavy with a little bit of carbohydrates versus lignin, light and heavy on the carbohydrates, the celluloses. Straw is over here. And I think what it is that the liquid culture can leap off the liquid culture and get to the cellulose well enough. Are you serious, Venture? My dog is caught in the curtains. Hold on.
Danny!
I don't know how to get him out. Okay, I'll let you get him up.
What did you do?
Yeah, he's got himself wrapped up in the curtains. Okay. So, yeah, anyways, the straw is more readily nutritious and therefore easy. It's also one of the reasons why I wanted to switch to straw instead of wood. The wood's not getting used up before the block runs out of water, even with water crystals. But the straw will get used up much more readily because it is much more open to being eaten by the fungus. Thank you, Samantha. Tried a lot of blocks with just core, verm, and some dissolved nutrients, but hardly any of my strains would take off on it. Was trying to use them as spawn, mostly verm. Yeah, I've tried that too, specifically because a lot of my consult work these days is heading into medicinals, which are truly medicinal, but you know what I mean. I've been doing a lot of consults. A lot of people are, planning on it going legal soon. So in those consults, everybody wants to use core, and I don't understand why they don't want to just get straw pellets. But from my understanding, it has something to do with the way a lot of these guys are coming from the weed industry, and they're already familiar with coco core, but it is a very poor substrate. I've tried it a few times for a few different people just to see how stuff, like what culture takes off on it, and it just doesn't work out well. So yeah, Josh, take it easy, man. Unless you're already gone, in which case, screw you, man. It is okay to use grains spawn with the goat mix, or should I just use straight LC because this is my first run at this and I went ahead and made grain spawn? Use grain spawn, man. If you already got it, use it. I'm not even doing bulk, LC to bulk all the time. The big problem with that is finding enough liquid culture. And if I wasn't selling with so many strains, I probably could do it a lot easier. But it's grain spawn. Just use grain spawn. Grain spawn's proven. What I would say is experiment with liquid culture to goat mix, but for the most part, just use grain spawn for now. Just plan on grain spawn, and then work your way into something else. Liquid culture is much more reliable than it used to be. But 10 years ago when I was first trying this stuff, liquid culture was not the way to go. Everybody hated it. Everybody thought it was wrong. Everybody thought that it was, oh yeah, it's great when it works, and then when it doesn't, including myself. And then I found Peter McCoy's book, Radical Mycology, where he talks about the airport lid. And I can't remember who invented the airport lid, but Peter McCoy was my introduction to it. The airport lid has made all the difference. It has completely changed the game. So, what up, Mozzie? Been missing the Q&A bits. Well, hey, what's up, Magnolia? Well, I've been on for 2 hours and 20 minutes, so you don't have me for much longer. But I'm sorry you've been missing me. I haven't been doing them regularly yet, so. Yeah, medicinal. Yeah, cocoa is even marketed as being nutritionally empty. I'm ready to go make dinner whenever you get off, lol. I can't force myself to leave before you. That's fine, John. I'll be getting off here in just a second. Any use of used blocks? If you mean the spent blocks, I have 2 videos, Ismail, on spent blocks, and those anything from composting to garden space to feeding it to insects to just spreading it around as a mulch. There's all kinds of uses for spent blocks. I sell them to landscapers who use it as a mulch. So much hate on the Shroomery for LC over the years. Your video encouraged me to get back into it. I use regular filter disc in LC. Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that a lot as well. My tired is probably showing a little bit too. So, I mean, honestly, since things seem like they've slowed down a little bit, I'll probably just take this chance to go ahead and get off. So, yeah, good night, Ian. Good night, John. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for making this a good live stream. Nice and chill. Good night, everyone.